All right, so this is going to cover chapter 8. It's not very, very long. It's kind of fun, it's kind of intuitive, so we'll definitely talk about cell communication and how cells are able to communicate with one another. So, first I'm going to hit you with just a definition, it's not too bad. This one talks about cell communication and signaling. So, what does it mean when a cell communicates or signals? This is a process in which cells can create a signal, right? Because you have to have something there to be able to toss around. They can detect a signal, being able to identify what that signal is and, even be able to recognize it, interpret it, understand what it means, and finally respond. So have some type of effect as a result of that signal. And this is going to be, long story short, what cell communication is, starting from the very beginning of creating that signal all the way to the cellular response. So any type of signal, whether it's a cell, whether it's, your real life signals, they're going to have two major players involved. So the first one of those players is called a signal, or also called a ligand. So the reason I gave it two different terms here is the ligand is essentially the scientific version. So when we're talking about scientifically, we're going to say the word ligand. If you're just talking with your friends, you might say the word signal. But either one of these are going to basically be the molecule that carries that information. So if anybody's interested in sports, I know there's a lot of March Madness going on as of right now. There's a lot of basketball, NBA stuff. The signal would actually be the basketball, right? That's going to be what carries information. That's going to be the thing that everyone is looking to get. That's going to be the item of interest. That's going to be what kind of gets moved around. If you're a baseball player, then it would be the baseball. Softball player, softball. You kind of get the gist here. The other part of communication is a receptor. So you need to have some type of protein, some type of cellular piece that can actually recognize that incoming signal. So in this case, if we're talking about our basketball stuff, we're going to be talking about your hands, right? I'm a Kansas fan, so go Kansas. I hope that everyone on the team is able to see the ball, catch the ball, all that kind of stuff. If you're talking about baseball, it will be your glove. Your cells is going to be that receptor you have on all of your cells that can say, hey, there's a signal there. I was able to receive it. All of that is going to be those two players that you have. So if you look at this, right now I am talking and you hopefully can hear me. If you're thinking of this, if you're kind of putting it into context of what we already discussed, turns out that my voice right now is actually the signal, or it is the ligand. There's information in my voice. If I say, this is really important, you'll see it on the test, that might cause you to perk up. If I say, don't worry about it, this is not important, it might cause you to, slow down. Your ears, you listening right now, is going to be the receptor. It's going to be that cellular thing that says, oh, I received a signal. It caused me to have some type of response, right? Another great way, I know melanin popping, we talk about black girl magic, black boy joy, all these types of things. These are going to be concepts that are kind of derived from some cell signals, receptors, and responses we have. So if you didn't know, I want to give you a little bit of a history lesson here. Your skin that has melanin in it, right? So anyone with a dark complexion or any type of melanin in their complexion. Now, it doesn't mean you have to be a dark complexion, because actually everybody has a bit of melanin in them. But that melanin is going to be a special type of protein that is found in your skin, right? It's going to be found, it's a pigmented protein in your skin. What happens is when the sun shines its rays, it's going to have some UV light attached to it. In this case, the sun will be the signal. The sun will be the ligand. What happens? It reaches the melanin. The melanin, guess what the melanin is? It's a receptor. The melanin is going to be able to receive that sun. Another great thing about melanin, it is a UV protectant. So if you've ever wondered why people, different groups of people that live closer to the equator or in areas that have very, very direct sunlight, they are going to have a darker complexion, darker skin, because melanin protects them from the sun. A same concept is associated with the texture of your hair. If your hair has a little more kinks to it, it's a little thicker, that's because you have to protect your scalp. Because remember, the sun is shining on your head genetically. If this is where you're from, areas where the sun is at, it's shining on your head. You want to make sure you got something to protect your scalp, right? Melanin is UV protectant, all that stuff. So the signal is the sun. The UV or the receptor would be the melanin that's on your skin. And what is your response going to be? Your response is going to be, typically, it's going to be an increase in the color, or just think of it as a tan, right? If you're in the sun for a while, that melanin is going to say, wow, we have a lot of UV rays around. Let's like increase the melanin production. Let's increase the darkness of this skin so that we can continue to protect our skin. So I know it's like, social construct, that type of thing, but regardless, there are some biological aspects to this entire, melanin popping thing we got going on. All right. So what are some of the general features of cell communication? The signals that we have are really critical because that helps us to coordinate activities in our body. Remember, we are multicellular, so we have a lot of levels to us. We want to make sure that if we touch a hot stove, that message can get all the way up into your brain. So the signal is going to make sure that we can kind of think of it like a relay race. Y'all remember field day back in elementary school? You had a relay race. That's exactly what signaling is. So what happens is we actually change the shape of the receptor. So we change that shape similar to that conformational change that we talked about in the previous lecture. And when that happens, you start to have this intracellular response that occurs. That intracellular response, and my apologies, this occurs at the membrane, right? So we start off at the membrane because remember, our cells have receptors on the top of their surface. So you start off a response here, and then you do the field day relay race all the way down until you eventually get to, guess where? Your nucleus, which has your DNA. Remember central dogma, DNA makes the RNA, and that's going to make the protein, which is going to essentially be the response. So that relay race that happens inside of your cell is actually called a signaling cascade. So the same way a waterfall, water comes from here to here to here, all the way down, like a cascade of water, that's what we call a signaling cascade. So real quick, why is it important? Cellular response, we need to be able to understand, a cell needs to be able to respond to something, right? If it's, an invasion or some type of infection, we want to be able to say, wow, we need to protect ourselves. The other thing is cell-cell communication. So if I want to move my arms to the left, I need to be able to tell all the cells in the row that we're moving to the left, right? Okay, let's take a break from science and let's imagine that life was better for a second. You were lucky. You won tickets to the non-quarantined Grammys where you got to see the infamous Beyonce, Giselle, Knowles, Carter. Yes, Jay-Z was there. Yes, other people were there, but that doesn't matter. You got to see Beyonce. So the question is, how can you talk to Beyonce if you were these people, right? You were lucky enough to even be in the building. How can you talk to Beyonce if you were Jay-Z? So imagine you being Jay-Z. Anybody that doesn't know who Jay-Z is, just in case, it's this guy here. This is Beyonce if you happen to not know who that is, but that's crazy. This is Jay-Z. So if you were Jay-Z, how would you be able to tell Beyonce a secret? You can probably just tap her on her arm. Hey, Beyonce, you're the best. I wanted to tell you that, right? What if you were Yo Gotti? You probably didn't think I know who Yo Gotti was. That's him right here. Maybe people don't know because, sometimes you don't see rappers' faces. You just hear the songs. Yes, this is him. How would you tell Beyonce a message? Well, hopefully you would say, excuse me, Beyonce, I have something to tell you. You probably could say it to her. You're not too far away. She probably could hear you, over the roaring fans behind her, but I think you can tell her that. Hey, what if you're DJ Khaled? DJ Khaled? Yes, he's the creep in the back, right? Standing up where nobody else is standing up except for Jay-Z. So maybe the two of them are odd in this case. Regardless, you would probably have to maybe yell a little bit. You wouldn't be able to tap her on the shoulder. You would have to put a little, bass in your voice to get the message across. But, this is a dream, so I guess we can sit wherever. But realistically, we probably won the tickets off the radio. So we're probably somewhere around here, okay? We're somewhere at the top. So if you wanted to give Beyonce your mixtape, ask yourself, how would I get her this fire mixtape? I just have to find a way. It will probably take a lot of effort. You might have to, give it to a security guard, give them $20, have them go all the way down the stairs, all the way up the hallway, give it to Beyonce, let her use it as, a napkin or something. Alrighty. So as you see, there are different ways to talk to people based off of something simple as distance, right? So the distance is going to determine the communication. The way that Jay-Z talks to Beyonce is going to be much different because he's right next to her as compared to the way we talk to Beyonce because we're very, 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 very far. So this is going to be a very similar thing that we see in cell communication. Let's get into it. So there are 5 different ways to communicate. We're going to go through each one, give you some nice examples, and hopefully it all makes sense. And this is just a list of them, so I won't really read through them because we're going to talk about each one specifically. All right, the very first one is direct intercellular signaling. Direct intercellular signaling. So let's talk about that. Direct, we know what direct means. I can't even write a definition for it because we all know what it means. That is just, right there. That's the only thing I could think of. Direct is right there. Inter actually means between. So if you think of intergalactic wars, it's the wars between galaxies. So it's going to be the cells that are actually right next to each other. Adjacent cells can pass messages back and forth. This is cell number 1. This is cell number 2. They are directly next to each other. This usually occurs through gap junctions. And if you remember from the previous lecture, this is found in animals, right? So again, cell 1, cell 2, they have a direct line of communication. They are right next to each other. Imagine if there was a hole in the screen and I can reach through the screen right now and hand you a Diet Coke, right? And you can reach through the screen and hand me a Diet Pepsi, right? All of that is going to be because we're right next to each other, right? You can reach right through that space and connect with the person next to you. Think about if you're in your bedroom, right? Maybe there's somebody's bedroom next to you. If there was a hole in the wall, you can reach through, hey, here's the remote. Hey, here's some popcorn, whatever, right? It's direct. It's a hole in the wall type of thing. You are directly next to the cell. That is direct intercellular signaling. Contact dependent signaling. This is going to be just like the name suggests, contact dependent, meaning there has to be some contact there. So in this case, there has to be some form of touching required. So one cell must connect or touch the other cell to pass the signal. So I'm going to just randomly draw a little shape here. Boom, that's cell number 1. Cell number 1 has to come in contact with cell number 2. They have to eventually touch each other. In this case, one cell actually has a membrane-bound signal. So a signal that is attached to it. So the same way this little ball here is attached to the cell, I drew a line, right? They're all connected. That is going to be a membrane-bound signal. That signal doesn't go anywhere. It's just part of the cell. And then the other cell will actually have the receptor as a part of it. So in this case, my little U shape here is going to be the receptor. This is going to be cell number 1. This is going to be cell number 2. Same concept. Contact dependent signaling. Real life example, iPhone. Now iPhone has Face ID, so I guess it's not really the same, but before Face ID, we had Touch ID. Your finger actually had this signal on it. So your finger contained the membrane bound signal, right? It was your fingerprint. So your fingerprint was the signal, and the phone held the receptor, which was the little space for the Touch ID. So that's a little bit how the contact dependent signaling works. So autocrine signaling, if you think of the word auto kind of means self, right? Auto can mean self in some ways. And that is kind of a clue to how this signaling works. So autocrine signaling works when you actually have a cell that's able to secrete a signal that it also can recognize, but that signal can also go to other cells that are the same and close. What is she talking about? So this is cell number 1, right? This cell number 1, let's say it has a receptor for a square. This is cell 1, receptor for a little square. It can send out signals that are squares that are intended to go to other cells that are the same and close by. Cell 2, do cell 3. Look, they have a little square receptor too. Boom. This can go into that square receptor. This can go into that square receptor. But guess what? This one, all of these squares can still go into the cell that secreted its receptor. It can send the message and receive the message. So let me try to erase that because I know you can't see it anymore. Well, there it goes. Think of this as self-talking to self, or a boomerang effect. So in this picture you see to the right, you can identify that there's a signal being sent out. So right here, there's a signal being sent out, and it is intended to go to other cells. So let's say there's another cell over here. It can go to this cell, but it also can be received by itself. A boomerang, if you heard of a boomerang, it's this little device. They have it. It's like really famous in Australia. And you throw it out, but it actually can come right back to you. So you throw it out, and it goes in kind of a loop, and it comes back to you. It's like self-talking to self. So right now, when I'm talking or when you're talking, that's autocrine signaling, because guess what? I'm giving a signal in the form of English language, right? I'm saying things in English. I'm expecting people around me, you, if I was actually in a room with you, you would be around me, to hear what I'm saying and receive it in your ears, right? That's the receptor, your ears. But also, as I'm speaking, I can hear it in my ears, and I understand English, so it makes sense. I'm sending the signal out to people nearby. People over in Kansas cannot hear what I'm talking about. They're not close enough. They have to be the same in close. But you, because of technology, you're close, quote unquote, close to me. You can hear it. And that's a little bit how that works. One great example of autocrine signaling is the ripening of fruits. So right now I have an apple, which are found in bunches, but another great example of this would actually be a banana. So any banana eaters out there, you know, you start off your day, you say, okay, I'm going to take a banana, I'm going to throw it in my book bag, throw it in my purse, whatever. You forget about your banana. You check on your banana at 4 p.m. Your banana is now extremely ripened. It is very, very dark. Most people probably don't even want to eat it now because it's all squishy. Why? Because bananas and other fruits, especially fruits that grow in bunches like apples, like bananas, they have autocrine signaling. So they send out a signal that say, hey, it's time for us to ripen bananas, but also they receive it because they're a banana, they're an apple. So when you take your banana and you put it in a really close space like this, let's say you put it in like a little container or your book bag, your little banana is now, that's actually a really nice banana that I drew. It's actually going to send out signals to say ripen, but because it's in a small space, it's just going to keep ripening. It's just going to keep receiving that signal, right? So that's a little bit how fruit ripening works, autocrine signaling. Paracrine signaling, a cell that secretes a signal that influences cells that are different, but they're close by. So this is not going to affect itself. So if I was drawing my little pictures I've been drawing so far, I would have cell number 1. I have a square receptor. but I'm sending out messages or sending out signals that are circles, and it's only going to be picked up by other cells that are close by that can receive a circle. So it does not affect itself. It's going to be like if I know how to, let's say, speak Spanish, right? I know how to speak Spanish. I'm really good at it, but I cannot interpret it. So when I hear Spanish, I don't know what it means, but I know how to read off a paper. I know how to say something in Spanish. Other Spanish speaking people around me will understand it because they understand Spanish. That's their signal, but I don't understand Spanish. I can't interpret it. So that signal doesn't affect me. Another great example is you throwing a bone to a dog, right? You would actually be sending out a signal, right? So in this case, the bone is going to be the signal, right? And the dog, what's the signal? The dog is very happy to see that bone, but you don't eat bones. So although you sent out the signal, you don't receive that signal. That's not your jam. Bones are not your thing, right? But the dog, close but different, is going to be able to receive that. Our final type of signaling is endocrine signaling. And this signaling occurs over long distances and they last for a very, very long time. So an example of this, or our most popular example, is when we talk about hormones. So hormones are going to frequently use endocrine signaling because you produce it, let's say, in one part of your body. Down here, the signal we're able to actually go through the bloodstream, go through some type of system, you'll be able to get somewhere very, very far, and then it pops up somewhere else and has an effect. A great example is, for men, let's say testosterone, right? Men can produce testosterone in their testes, which is going to be in the lower part of their body, but somehow that testosterone they produce is going to be able to cause them to get facial hair way up on their face. They're very, very far places away from each other, but that endocrine signaling allows for those long distances to occur and some long-lasting effects, right? So the consistent production of testosterone leads to consistent facial hair. Guys have to shave just about every day, right? Because their hair keeps growing. They keep getting that signal that says produce facial hair, all the other things that come along with that. So that's a great example of endocrine signaling in my little image. This shows Earth at the bottom, in which you have, the signal, the first signal that will be produced. That will be, let's say, here at the bottom. The first cell is going to produce that signal, which in this case is a rocket. And then, the moon, we're going way up to the moon. So long distances there. Okay, so we're done with the information for this. And this is all that we're covering for chapter 8. So please don't read too much into chapter 8. This is it. This is not going to be something we do, but now that you're done watching the lecture, take some time and think about if you remember the names of all 5 of those stages. What are the distances? What is needed? What types of cells there, right? So just give yourself some time to use without your notes, see what you can remember. I also have a few other slides just to show you. These are items that we covered as you prepare for your test. So just a few words here. Seeing these words, do you know what they mean? Can you define them? Can you give examples? Can you categorize the difference between prokaryotes and eukaryotes? Plant cells, animal cells? Do you know all of your organelles, your different types of transports, those type of things? So I won't cover it now, but maybe there was something that I showed you on this slide deck that you're like, I really got to look up what a Golgi is because I have no idea. These type of things. So hopefully this was a good lecture, and I will chat with y'all in class. Bye-bye.